Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
We are set to go, so I will call this meeting to order at 6:31. On the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance or silent meditation, which we previously did during the annual meeting. Would anyone like to redo it?
No.
Perfect. Let's skip that. So let's move on to the approval of the minutes from the June 20th meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? I think I have to take Marcia's
Okay.
because she was formerly on the board, but yes.
Anybody can fill in the end when you ended executive session and then
I had a.
that's the one when you went home. There's no, I didn't, yeah, adjourned. I don't have any information on that.
Yeah. Haven't been home. since
I
6:30.
have to abstain. I wasn't
And you,
present.
you weren't
So I
there.
can't
I
help
probably
you.
have the times at home, but I
Yes.
do not.
All right, and then we can approve them with.
Okay. Is there a second, I guess, for approving the minutes? Barbara. So we know we're missing a couple of times, which we hope to fill in, but is there any other changes or modifications to the minutes? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes from June 20th, 24, please say aye. Aye.
So wait, we have some, so who has to abstain because they weren't there? I just want to make sure. So Narina and then.
Mike was
because
not
he's
officially
brand
on the
new.
board yet.
So.
With your hand up for saying aye, Elise? Yeah.
Yeah, I have it and I don't know how to turn it off, but when I
Oh,
do
is
this for like hand gestures, it like does it. Can't take it off, I'm sorry.
Okay, so all in favor of approving the minutes? Anyone opposed? And we have the abstentions as
Marina and Mike.
Narina. Okay, Mike. Thank you so much. Minutes are approved. Is there any public input? Amy, had anything come in? No. Okay. So we will move on from public input then to personnel actions. Okay, so the personnel actions are to approve the appointment of Kevin Shaw as full-time custodian on July 17th, 2024. Adriana Primmett as full-time custodian on July 17th, 2024. To approve the status change of Holly Andrew from part-time library assistant to full-time library assistant on June 28th, 2023. And to approve the status change of Melissa Clemick from part-time library clerk to full-time library clerk on November 29th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve those?
Is that right about November 29th?
Yes. The administrative office is doing an audit of all of our personnel records, and we found that these two staff members never had official documentation of their status change.
Oh, they're not-
Well, for Tom, they were doing that.
Okay, so Michael Pespers made the motion.
Second,
Okay.
Mike,
Mhm.
I second.
Got it.
These required payroll changes. So these were retroactively paid. It's not approved.
The payroll changes went into effect. We just never had documentation for their status
Should they
change.
be paid as they should have been
Yes,
from these dates?
yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, discussion?
I'm just happy to see that we've got some full-time custodians.
Can you tell us a little bit about the background on the two custodians?
Sure, they both started yesterday. Some of you might have met them. They're our night shift team and also our weekend team. Kevin Shaw is relatively new to the profession, but he's got very enthusiastic through this whole process. Adriana has a ton of experience in this particular area. They've both been great so far, and knock on wood, don't scare them away. I talked to them this morning, and they're both happy to be here. So
So how many people do we have in the custodial staff?
four, so four, and that's full staffing.
Full staff.
Mhm.
How's
Woohoo, for full staff. So
Yeah.
excited.
new senior
The facilities manager, he is great. He stayed late last night. There was a board meeting that went past closing and did it without question or comment. He's got a lot of insight into, he took me up on the roof last week and we were looking at, things that can be fixed on the roof, improved on the roof. Ton of knowledge, ton of experience, and he's really been a good mentor for his staff so far. So I'm delighted with him. I think he started a week before I did. So he's got seniority on me by just a little bit.
Maybe you could have him do a few minutes to meet the board at some point in time.
Absolutely.
Tell us what he's doing.
Yeah.
Since we've had issues with this particular matter.
Sure.
So that would be helpful, I think, to us.
Yeah, next meeting, I can ask him to come. Say hi.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the personnel actions as stated? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. On to the most exciting part of the day, Georgia's treasurer's report.
Is it that time? So I would just start by saying that a member of the accounting profession passed away today. Probably all of you know that Bob Newhart started as an accountant, although by his own admission, he was a terrible accountant. So, and he said that himself. So hopefully he won't say that about me when my day comes. So looking at the balance sheet, you should note on line 1 that cash and cash equivalents is up significantly from the prior month. And Pete sent out an email very quickly after the occurrence, but there was a potential that somebody compromised one of the logins and could have learned the account number. So NBT closed the accounts down. And for that day, it ended up shifting the money out of our IntraFi account and into cash, and then subsequently it was put into a CD, and things are getting reestablished now. So there was not an actual data breach or anything, but since it was potentially compromised, I think they took a very conservative approach in doing that. So there was kind of a shift between the short-term investments and the cash and cash equivalents. Also on line 15, the Duda Gilliland School District, for the first time in, I don't know, a long time, it's 0 now. So that started out when we got the money for the building addition. It was set up as a liability, and then as it was used, it went down. And you'll see on the check run that an amount very close to the 200,255 was repaid to the school district before 6:30, which essentially means that, the project came in that much under budget, I think would be a fair interpretation of that. Then turning the page and looking at the statements of revenue, expense, and expenses. So I think we talked before that the tax levy is slightly over budget. We did receive a pilot payment. I think it was last month. I think that we've talked about the tax certiorari, which shows up on line 2, which we believe is pretty much settled now, primarily with Cross Gates and Macy's may have been separate, but within that whole suit and everything. So that we did end up having to pay $320,390. Going down under salaries and wages, there are unfavorable variances for both the month and the year. Looking at the year to date, it's 184 unfavorable, and Pete sent me some information this morning on the early buyouts, and it looked like about 158,782 were included in that. Part of that was accrued vacation and I believe sick time. So not all of it was attributable to the buyouts, but that much would have gone out in cash and is reflected in this. And most of that was paid in June. A small amount was paid the month before, but about $121,000 was paid out in June, which means June was a little favorable and year-to-date we're a little bit unfavorable. On a year-to-date basis, we've talked that fringe benefits and payroll taxes, they would have picked up a little impact from the early program because of FICA, which is 7.65%, so I think about $12,000 or so. But there was also, we ended up paying more for the New York State retirement system by quite a large amount. I think it was a little bit more than that. I was disappointed that line 20, insurance, was $1 off for the year. That's about as close as you can ever get. Equipment we've talked about before, and maintenance. We budget for capital improvements and capital reserve, and that, is, didn't end up charging anything against it, but that's a very favorable variance. So when you look at our net income from operations, we're about 270,000 unfavorable, a deficit. And our non-operating revenue, I think when the president spoke about what the finance committee has done, we had 242,000 in interest. Last year we had about 57,000. And the year before we had about 1,914. So I think it was a combination of back in November of 2022. We recommended that we moved about 1.5 million from non-interest bearing assets into an account that would earn about 5% interest. And then I think it was last November of 2023 that we set up the IntraFi accounts. So I think those both had significant impacts, as well as the fact that interest has gone up over the last couple of years significantly, the interest rates that are being paid. But with that 242,000, it does offset the loss from operations to a point that we're about $28,000 unfavorable. Fortunately, we have enough reserves that we don't have to be particularly concerned about that. And there was a lot of unusual events this year, unusual, but not from, well, never mind that. There's something in accounting, they account for unusual things different, but there were some big things that happened that accounted for much of that deficit. I think that's all I have to say about the financial statements, unless there's questions. And I guess I'd also offer that if anybody has questions or want to know how they work or something, and just want to talk about it offline at some point without conducting board business, I'd certainly be willing to, just sit down and go over that to give them a better overview if they'd like. That was sort of for the new people.
I would appreciate that.
Any other questions for George? Financial statements? George, is there anything you'd like to highlight on the check register?
So the only thing I think there's two things. The first line, I don't have it in front of me, but the first line is the check to the school district that we talked about. And I think that's good to finally wrap that up. I mean, that's been hanging over us since Mike was previously the chair of the finance committee. And I think that we were very fortunate to follow a process to resolve just exactly the amount due and get a legal opinion. And, I've mentioned, but the woman at Barclay Damon, the managing partner, did do that work for us and didn't charge us for it because I think she recognizes that we do good work in the community and things like that. And she read about us in the paper and I think, wanted to help out. And I think maybe the second or third Barbara brought up was an expense maybe for the Sunshine Fund for a trip to Boston for 2,800, if I remember.
2,300.
Thank you. I'm doing it from memory, so.
Pretty impressive.
So, and that we did confirm ends up coming out of the staff account, so that's not funded from library operations.
This was net of what was paid by people who took the trip.
I assume
Yeah,
so.
because there was a charge for people to take the Boston
Yeah,
trip.
yeah, my daughter and my granddaughter. went.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they did. Too. So this is the net, of course, to us.
I think that's it on the check register. Oh, they did, we talked about it, I think at finance committee or the board last month. And someone suggested, or perhaps the consultants that looked at it suggested that they add explanations to it. And they've done that. And I think it's, I mean, some, they're like, well, that's obvious, but I think it's nice to have them there because you know pretty exactly what it is.
To me, it's a real nice addition.
Yeah.
You would be both.
There's certain things like Amazon capital purchases and it says online purchases and it's like, okay, I kind of got to figure that out from Amazon, but still, overall, I think it's really good.
Are there any other questions or comments about the check register? Can I have a motion to approve the check register?
So moved.
Thank you, Barbara. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Michael. All in favor of approving the check register, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions.
Just a comment, nothing to do with this. There's going to be a merger with CDPHP with, I think, a national. So I think someone should be talking to our insurance brokers. If, this is going to make a major dent in, our insurance premiums and also kind of service. So people like them, they're local, very responsive. This could change that. So just ask them to please keep in mind, of course.
We've got a meeting coming up with our insurance broker, so we'll make sure we cover it.
If you
Okay, it's time for the directors and department heads report.
We did not, do you want to look at the investment report? I'm sorry, did we?
I
look at the
apologize,
investment report?
No, I didn't have it pulled out separate. I should have asked you for that.
Okay, I'm
That's
sorry, I
treasurer's
never know
report, but
exactly. who to
Jump
do
back
this.
into it before we
Well,
move on.
So I think it's best practice that the board does get the investment report with copies of all of the statements. And the statements for Broadview, formerly LPL, are attached. And I think the statement for the operating account, at least the first page, I mean, it's like 15 pages. So I think you can at least see the balances and sort of go through that. We will revise the investment report. We did not have the other statements and David sent them to me at 3:00, but I was out and about by that point, so I didn't get to update it or anything. And there's not any significant changes other than the fact that, as we said before, the IntraFi account went out, it's in cash, and then it was subsequently reinvested. I think 7 days later or something, and I did write to the bank. I didn't see a response, but typically, when you have balances at the bank in excess of FDIC, they give us a certificate at the end of the month with collateral that collateralizes the amounts because they have to be that way. And I just wanted to make sure, we had accounts before. I don't remember a CD ever being that high, and I just wanted to make sure of that, but we should be fine on that. And I think there were no new CD purchases or really any transactions, so
Thank you very much, Sean.
thank you.
Okay, now on to the director's report.
Okay, good evening, everyone. As I mentioned, we have now all survived my official first full month as director, so congratulations to me, to all of you, and to all the staff for getting this far. A lot of the work out of the director's office thus far has been getting the lay of the land, getting a feel for the ecosystem that the library lives within. And I feel like I have a much better understanding now, having met with the foundation, with our treasurer, with Upper Hudson Library System, getting a sense for how everything interoperates here. So that's really good news. There's still some work to be done on setting priorities for what should be addressed first in the upcoming year, but a couple of areas that aren't going to surprise anyone is tightening up policy, looking at our internal procedures here in the library. There's a lot of room for change and growth there. It's also getting a handle on our facility. A lot of parts of the building are very new, but other parts are not so new. And there are areas that should be addressed sooner rather than later. So I know that when Alicia first extended the offer to me, she mentioned, oh, you know, you might not want an evaluation in the first 3 months because I don't know what you're going to have accomplished, but a lot. And going forward, I think we've got a good roadmap of what we're doing. One of the things that I asked staff to provide in the department reports, which are, you know, all contained within the director's report, is a look ahead, not just a look back at the events that have already happened, but also things that we're excited about moving forward, especially as we go into summer reading. That is the library's Super Bowl. It's our big event of the year. I'll have firmer numbers next month and certainly after summer reading concludes, but we are well past, you know, recovering from the pandemic. Our summer reading signups, our summer reading attendance is already mirroring what we saw in 2019. So we're in a really good and stable place. That's also reflected as you look at our usage statistics, when you look at our circulation, when you look at our door count, you'll see several years of growth. You know, we're going up double-digit growth every year. That growth is now slowing down, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just means we're reaching a stable point where we can say, okay, what can we build on going forward from here? So as I mentioned, summer reading began on July 2nd. Brianna in her report goes into a lot of detail. It really takes a village to pull off the programs that we're doing. So really look for the names of the staff who are, you know, highlighted for the programs they've done or for the work they're doing. There's really exciting things happening at the library. Along with summer reading, the library's summer hours began, so we're now closed on Sundays. So hopefully nobody from the board has come and tried to get in Sunday. No, good, okay. If you do come on a Sunday, farmers market also began. Alish, Narina, Corey, we've had folks come and staff tables. I know there's a lot of enthusiasm for continuing to have a library presence at the farmers market. So I'm going to be coordinating with the library staff to make sure that we have books to sell, that the board members are set up, that we can get your table going. So yeah, just make sure to coordinate with me kind of every week and make sure we know who's coming, if anyone's coming, that kind of thing. Mentioned some of our programs that I thought were really exciting. So one that I've actually never seen before. Did anybody attend our speed friending event? You have enough friends? Okay, that's fine.
No, it was already all.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, it was completely sold out and it's something that's unusual for library programs. You know, people sign up and then a couple people didn't come, you know, they get better plans, they get a flat tire, something happens. It was sold out and fully attended. We had full attendance, so hopefully some people made some new friends at that event. We've already had demand for doing modified speed friending, maybe a smaller crowd, but more often. George looks like he wants to come and meet some people. And I highlight that one specifically because when we talk about like what's good about public libraries, we say like, okay, you can get free education, books, it's a nice cool place to use Wi-Fi, but we really are one of the few third places that remain. It's like us in public parks. So people have their home, they have their job, they have to have another place that they can go that isn't the grocery store or the Starbucks. That's the public library. So we're really leaning into that with speed friending. The events happening inside the library. We also have events happening outside the library. So coming up as part of our summer reading program, we have a fantasy quest, which is a treasure hunt / escape room style event. It's for all ages, but it's mostly intended for adults. That'll be at Tawasenta Park on July 25th. We also have a fantasy fair here at the library with a quote unquote real unicorn. I can't imagine what animal this is with something attached to its forehead. But there'll be an event coming up on July 23rd. And then July 26th, for any unicorn fans in the room, we have a unicorn picnic and also Camp GPL, which is an after-hour event for teens. So all very exciting events coming up. We had 80 people attending our summer ukulele sing-along, which was meant to be held outside, but because of rain, we held it inside. It did not dampen anyone's enthusiasm. And then we do things like we have a Read and Eat cookbook club, we have Zoom art talks. So really anything that anybody can think of as a library program, we have available here. You may have noticed the porta potties that were delivered outside. That is for the farmers markets. They're across. So if anybody asks the market, like, hey, can I use the bathroom? It's across the street in the gravel parking lot. That's our porta potties. Other things I want to mention, in case anybody asks you when you're out in the community and you say, hey, I'm on the library board, and somebody says, oh, I use your Hoopla service. We reduced our number of Hoopla checkouts from 12 to 8. 12 was incredibly generous for the checkouts. 8 is still generous. I think it's the second most that's offered in the Upper Hudson library system. We found that maybe a small percentage of our patrons used more than 8 checkouts. So this got us in line with what the other libraries were doing and also in line with what our patrons were actually asking for. We had some feedback, a couple of people who were power users were a little disappointed, but otherwise everyone's kind of taken that in stride. And the last thing I want to mention as part of my report is a partnership that we have with the school district. This is for our summer reading buddies program. Another big thing that public libraries do is they help prevent the summer slide. You know, kids that get out of school for the summer, they forget everything they learned in the preceding 9 months, and then they come back in September and have to start all over again. Keeping kids reading and engaged in literacy over the summer helps prevent this. So we're partnering with the school district and with Altamont Public Library. It's essentially a tutoring program to keep kids engaged with their summer reading.
They can't see about the screen if it comes down this way.
Oh, sorry. So that's it for the official director portion. A couple of highlights I just wanted to touch on in the operational briefing. It's always nice when staff internally get promotions. So Quinn Chen and Carly Drislane, 2 of our senior clerks, have been promoted to library assistants. That's wonderful news. If you haven't met them, they're terrific employees. Always happy to work with them and see them succeed. So I wanted to mention that. Covered a lot of these other areas in terms of programming. Were there any questions about anything that I brought up in the report or anything that's in the narrative of the report?
Not a question, Pete, but this was something that was starting to pick up traction and I think just kind of fell off. I know it won't always be that a board member can volunteer, but we did hear that there was not a lot of board involvement in some of the programs in terms of volunteering or helping. So we did ask that if there were call outs where more help could be used for a program. So we did that for like the trunk or treat. So a few board members stepped up and did things for that. So if there's any events coming up that they can use some extra hands, if they can give us a heads up in the month before, then we can see who can be around to help if we get a heads up, or you can shoot us an email too. But just throwing that out there that I know I would be interested in, others might as well, if there's some help needed for the programming support.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that would be appreciated. And we're working internally on being more strategic with our planning of how we lay out our programs. So I think this dovetails right into that.
Awesome. That's it.
Something, the Altamont Fair is coming up. I was wondering whether any thought was given to having a table for the library.
No thought.
I didn't want to step on any of the
Fair.
Altamont library.
Yeah.
Well, I can,
Please, Amy.
they don't have library tables there. What they have is the library sends a librarian to do story time. So the libraries in the system are taking turns. And we haven't set a date for what days that we're going to be there yet, but we are
But
going
we
to
will
be
be there.
participating.
There'll be
Yep.
business. Okay. And the second thing is, if you know of any big program coming up, any policy issue you want to raise, the future, any, so that we have some knowledge beforehand and maybe you can help or add something to it. If you put that in your narrative on a monthly basis, would help you and help us as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, especially if there's anything coming up that I think is going to have larger than normal. We'll be bringing that to the board in advance.
Thank you. Any other questions for Pete?
Have you met with any of the local legislators?
I met 2 at the Altamont Gala, but that was the only time I've gotten to interact with them yet.
Because we sometimes plan a trip down to discuss library funding and other issues. And we have some good friends down there, Pat May and others. So I think it would be a good thing for you to get together and be with them.
Absolutely. And Pat Fahey was one of the ones I met, and incredibly huge library supporter.
Yes.
Thanks.
We will move on to old business then. So the old business that we have is the bylaws amendment. It was proposed last month in the meeting, and we had a draft and we discussed some things in that meeting, which I incorporated into this copy. And then there were several suggestions of mostly in relation to cleanup and just a little bit of clarification that came through email. So I also incorporated those into the draft that you have in front of you. So I will open it up. As we stated before, the primary purpose of this revision of the bylaws was to restructure the committees. So those are the primary changes that have been made.
What is in governance? I wasn't here for the last meeting.
So governance is taking on policies and let's see, it should be on page 7. Yeah. So it's essentially doing the work of the policies committee plus committing to reviewing the bylaws on a regular basis.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Are there other questions, comments? Do folks need just a minute to review that?
No comments at the moment. I think it's a good division of labor.
Okay. Okay. If there are no questions or comments on this, I would request a motion to approve the bylaws as amended.
Make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
If I'm allowed to, I can second, yeah.
I'm not sure, so I'm gonna take Mike's because it.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Under Article 4, standing committees,
Yes.
I thought we had talked about the committee itself choosing their chair, not that last sentence.
Let's see. Tell me what you're looking at here. Standing committees. The president shall appoint members for each standing committee and assignments shall be approved by the board. Was this the one that was in the packet?
There, one of them is a red line, that's the separate one.
Oh, okay. So
Packet
this is the one that, and I did make that change in the president. So this is the final version that doesn't have the red line. And so it just states the president shall appoint members for each standing committee and assignments shall be approved by the board. There's nothing about chairing.
So this one is the final draft one that's
Yes.
in the packet, not that one.
Yeah,
One in the packet's the final.
that's the final.
The underline.
Yeah.
Number 8 is a little unclear. Page 6. Article 6. The director or the director's designee shall attend all meetings, including executive sessions, unless the board decides otherwise, and may participate in discussions and other professional advice and offer professional advice that shall not be committee meetings. Because obviously the director votes in.
That has not been changed. That is language bylaws.
Yeah, but there needs to be.
What's unclear?
Director or the director's designee shall attend all meetings.
It's under the section meetings of the board. So I think it's just referring to just board meetings.
Won't be able to vote.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He doesn't.
vote.
He doesn't vote.
Director.
Director doesn't vote at our meetings.
No.
You want me to vote?
Sorry. For my
Were
objection.
you thinking president?
Yes.
Okay, it's talking about Pete. I was like, that one didn't get changed.
Like vitamin water.
I was very excited. I thought this was gonna be a great change today.
You have enough headaches.
No, it's all right. Anything else that popped out? So we have a motion by Michael and a second by Mike. If there are no other comments, then I would ask for us to vote. So everyone that votes in favor of amending the bylaws as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, bylaws have been amended. Is there any other old business that did not find its way onto the agenda? Great. So then we will move on to new business. The first thing is the board meeting dates, which Amy very helpfully looked at. Also the school calendar to get an idea of when the school holidays were. And so these, Amy, correct, are the third Thursday in every month for the upcoming year. And so there are a couple of questions on here which we want to address before we set these. So I'm going to address the one that had to be changed. First is the June 19th meeting. Juneteenth is now a federal holiday. The library is closed. I believe that it's best for us to not have a meeting on a holiday. However, that's the last meeting of the fiscal year. So I personally lean towards moving it rather than automatically canceling it in case there's business that we need to attend to at the time. It's difficult to back that meeting up to the second week because the finances will not be complete. So I would propose that we move it to the June 19th meeting 1 week later to the 26th. Thank you. It should have been easy math. I don't know how folks feel about that.
I think that makes sense.
Okay. The other two that are in there are during, Amy has noted, President's Recess Week and Spring Break. I don't have a personal preference on this as someone without children, so I would love for the others to speak up.
I think we need,
You think we need to move them?
yeah, I would appreciate it if you did, because I completely understand.
We have 5 people with school-age children, so.
Okay,
There's a decent chance we might have trouble getting a quorum.
Right.
I would suggest bumping each of those to the following week.
okay.
And
So we would be looking at February 27th. And then that seemed to work for everybody. Obviously, no one knows what they're going to be doing on April 24th at this moment.
Would you want to move the March meeting, seeing that
my birthday's might not be here.
you move it to the
My
27th?
birthday.
Move that to March 27th, April 24th, and we'll just move each of those down by a week.
The what?
For the rest of the year.
Depends how the finances go. What would be better for the finance people? What I'm saying is if we move the February meeting to the 27th, should we move the March meeting to the 27th? Because we moved the April meeting to the 24th a week later. And the June meeting a week later, should we move the May meeting a week later as well?
Is that like always moving the meetings to the last Thursday of the month or something? Is that the way it works out? Fourth Thursday, the last?
My instinct is to leave the other ones just for ease of communication with the community, you know, that these are exceptions to the rule rather than the rule, but I understand where you're coming from. So I just haven't looked at those other 2 dates.
Maybe leave it the way it is, but if, you know, Jackie says it'd be better to, here you're gonna have the last meeting on the 27th,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna be asking for the 20th. 3 weeks later.
Yeah. George, do you have any insight on that?
I think it would be okay. I mean, I don't think that's an issue as long as you
Yeah.
have, you know,
Because this February meeting would be looking at the January one. Yeah, so, okay. I know in past years, we have taken some meetings off of the agenda at this time, such as the August meeting or the December meeting, I believe are the two that we have.
Right.
My instinct is to leave them on and if there's no business, but I also am happy to entertain ideas of just taking them off.
After December 15th, I know that.
I think every
Okay.
December, it's hard to get people because of all the preparation, so.
And you said you would not be around for the December one anyway. Is there another one that you were unable to attend, do you know?
On the April 24th, I may or may not show up.
Yeah, I would lean toward just leaving them on and in case, you know, and we never know when things are, what's gonna be happening at that point of time, and it's easier to, you know, try and have the meeting if we need it than to, you know, or than to if have to do an emergency or special meeting if something comes up that we need to deal with or whatever. So I would just assume.
I agree.
Yeah, and if people can't make it, we have to give weeks notice anyway, so we should send a notice that early. See if we have a quorum, if not, stretch the meeting.
Are you okay with leaving them on for the time being? And then if there's, I mean, I have a feeling that December one is going to be difficult to get a quorum for, so we will make it our goal not to have pressing business. December.
Are we gonna get rid of the August meeting this year or keep it?
We have some pressing business. The management confidential contracts need to be approved, and there may be a piece for executive session that would need to be approved in August. Am I speaking correctly?
All right.
Amy, did you note those dates for the three? Okay, perfect. So I believe that we need to vote to set the regular monthly and annual business meeting dates for 2024 to 2025. Is there a motion to set them as just discussed?
Motion.
Thank you, Norina. Thank you, Marcia. Okay. The next item on the list is committee assignment.
We have to vote on that?
Apologies. Is there any additional discussion?
Director can't vote.
I didn't even hear what you said. Okay, all in favor of setting those meeting dates, say aye. Anyone opposed? No abstentions? Okay, thank you. They have been set. Okay. Now committee assignment. Thank you all. Everyone completed the form or got back to me about what they were or were not interested in doing. So this is obviously not set in stone, and I am happy to make adjustments at this time. I tried to take everyone's first and second priorities. I tried to place everyone on those committees. And I apologize, Michael, when I sent this in, I hadn't heard confirmation yet. So any space, there's a blank space, that's for you. So personnel, facilities, and board development. Did not work out very well because there was a committee or two that no one wanted to be on. And then there were a committee or two that everyone wanted to be on. So taking into consideration skill sets and what they were willing to do, I tried to do it this way. Every person should have 3 assignments. And in most cases, you have 2 standing committees and then 1 either ad hoc or outside appointment. It is not that way every time, but that's how most of it shakes out. I know that the president is no longer assigning committee chairs, which is perfectly fine. I did set aside some folks, and I will make these as suggestions, but this portion of it does not need to be voted on, so that the committee chairmanships are spread out throughout the board. So not anyone is taking on more responsibility and no one is taking on less. We have one member of the board who is specifically asked not to chair a committee, so they are not assigned to committee. I would recommend that Tony chair the finance, and Michael, you get your first year off from chairing, but I'm sure you'll be in there next year. I'm recommending that Tony chair the finance committee, Alicia chair the personnel committee, Bill chair the facilities committee, Mike Ralchek the governance committee. Barbara it's already been approved, but she'll be chairing the nominations committee. I am willing to chair the long range planning committee if that is what is wanted, and I recommend that Norina chair the board development committee.
I just wanted to mention, the ad hoc committee with the cafe investigation is still.
So we should add those members and extend
Yeah,
that.
I think we need to
So apologies, you all have one more assignment
think of
then.
that detail.
It is the ad hoc, say the name of the committee
I
again.
don't know, do we have a name? Ad hoc cafe
Cafe
investigation.
Cafe investigation, and it is Barbara, Marcia, Mike, and Bill.
Yes.
And you chair.
I was kind of the chair, but I mean, it didn't really, Bill does most of the work, so.
Bill chair,
I don't mind.
and you co-chair.
Yeah, you're it, right?
I can be the chair officially.
Okay. I guess that's not for us to officially decide in here. That's for you all to decide in your meeting email. So I'm just presenting the slate of committee members. There was something you were just desperate to be on. You speak now. You did not decide to.
Does Mike know when you are? Sure.
I did not have the chance to ask you, are you okay with serving on the Personnel, Facilities, and Board Development Committee? I can explain any of those if you want to know. I think board development.
interested in all of them.
Yeah, okay. And things change over every year. I think board development will be great as a new person that's just joining the board to have an understanding of what we want to do and to have suggestions for programming. The facilities committee, I will just admit that is the least popular committee currently. And so by default, and the personnel committee, I think that you'd make a great addition and it would be nice to have your perspective.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. And also, just so you know, that all board members are free to attend the meetings of any committee, even if you're not on that committee. So you're welcome to attend, participate in other committees that you're not on. You just won't be a voting member of that committee.
Thank you.
So before we move on to asking for a motion to approve the listing of committee members. Is there a motion to approve the listing of committee members distributed? And with the addition of the ad hoc cafe investigation? Yes,
I have a
Alicia.
question. How does the quorum work if you have a 4-person committee?
It's in the new bylaws. It does require 3.
3, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Is there a motion? Did I miss somebody's hand? Barbara, thank you. Is there a second? Marcia? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Say aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Thank you very much. So it's up to the committees to, and if they can let me and Pete know who has been determined to be the chair, that way they can be placed on the agenda to report out on this in the future. So. Holiday and closing calendars. That was also included in the packet. Thank you, Amy, for putting that together. Have there been any significant changes to this calendar? None at all. Okay, that makes it easy. Any comments, questions about that? It looks like you guys have chosen the first Tuesday of June for staff development day. Is that? Should be a Wednesday. Okay. Oh, Wednesday. It's right next to it. Is there a motion to approve the 2025 holiday and closings calendar?
Motion.
Thank you, Norina. Is there a second? Thank you, Bill. Any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the calendar? Aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Perfect. The two other pieces of new business are to make myself and Mike Horalchuk signatories for the MBT accounts. Do we have forms for that? I forgot.
I forgot to do the
Okay,
forms,
I
but I
can-
have wording.
And I've got it on my phone. So
Okay.
do you want to read it or do you want me to read it? Please read it because it's for me. If you don't
I
mind.
don't mind. that's
Thank you.
fine. So I have Mike's listed first. Now therefore be it resolved that Michael Horalchuk in his capacity as trustee officer of Gilman Public Library is hereby appointed as a check signer at EBT Bank.
Is there a motion to appoint Mike in his role as secretary? Thank you, Marcia. Second, Norina. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I'll,
Abstain? Okay. Okay. On to the next. Amy, if you don't mind.
Not at all. Now therefore be it resolved that Corey Dugas in her capacity as trustee officer of Gilman Public Library is hereby appointed as a check signer at NBT Bank.
Motion.
Thank you, Norina. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Barbara. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I will also abstain. Okay. Final item on the agenda is public inputs. Do we have any additional public input? Or any-
Really quick before we go into the public input, can we just commit to the date that we get you the chairs by, just so you guys are not chasing folks down? So we can at least commit to like getting our initial meeting at before a certain date.
Certainly, that would be lovely. Thanks for the suggestion, Alish. If you guys can get them to us in advance of the August meeting, so at least the names can be correct on the agenda. Maybe a few days in advance of the August meeting, so the names can be correct. So let's say August 12th would be the ideal date to have committee chair.
Okay, I'm not committing to being chair of any of the committees I'm on, but I'll at least send the invites out for the meetings I'm on. So that'll cover a couple of them, so.
Thanks, Alish.
No worries.
Okay. Public input, nothing from Amy. Do you have anything you would like to add? Nope. You're conserving? Great. So there is no public input. We do have the need for an executive session this evening for the purpose of discussions regarding proposed, pending, or current litigation. So we will need a motion to move into executive session.
Motion.
Thanks, Serena. Is there a second? Thank you, Bill. All in favor? Aye. Great. Thanks so much. Thanks for coming.
Have a good evening.
You too.
No, that's.
Oh, that's yours. Okay.
Should I join the other link? Yeah, there's a different.
No, I don't know. Just-
Are you guys taking a break or should I join right to the executive session
No.
link?
Does anyone need a break or can we go right in?
Is when the motion to go to executive session,
Yeah.
you motion and seconded and the vote and adjournment, same thing. That's it.
Okay. Okay. And then
And if there's anything you vote on after executive
After we come
session,
out,
then if you
then
that
I'll-
information too.
all right, I will get that. And then
Yeah, it's fired up, but we'll do.
I'm gonna jump to the other link. See ya.
And if anybody has their policy